Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back here with another video. I've got to admit, this is quite a negative one. As I mentioned recently, I want to get the worst out of the way. As it's the first, symbolically, I want to talk about some of my most honest thoughts, which are negative. So please forgive me for that one. I've got to admit, with all my videos, I'd love for as many people as possible to check them out. I do feel a bit guilty for making negative content, but I do try and be as honest as possible with all my videos, really. But this one's going to be quite pessimistic, a negative one, that kind of thing. So if you, I understand if you don't, well, obviously it's your choice anyway, whether you want to check it out, but it is going to be quite a negative one, which I feel a bit guilty about. And I'm hoping that as March goes along and in the future generally, I'll shed some of these negative thoughts and feelings, and I'll be proven wrong about them. Hopefully, obviously, these are sort of the nightmare vision that I hope to be proven wrong about, perhaps, and also some confessions about some of my more negative thoughts. I often think about making videos about my mental health problems and stuff like that, but I haven't really got around to it as well as I'd like. Although I have sort of discussed them a little bit, but not quite in the way I wanted to. But anyway. Yeah, I think that covers everything for the intro. I'm just hoping I don't forget anything, which is another one of my negative sort of things, which I hope to come to in these videos. But as I say, today's going to be quite a negative one. I'd understand if you don't check. Well, I mean, again, it's up to you whether you check out any of my videos or not. Of course, I always welcome views and comments and stuff like that. Hopefully positive ones, but also constructive criticism. But even if people are harsh, it's still people interacting, I suppose. But yeah, so these are some more honest thoughts, which are, well, as I say, all my videos are as honest as possible, but some I might hold things back. But yeah, when I've discussed them, I'll say that there are one or two things I'm too ashamed to admit, as honest as I am, which will probably shock a lot of people. You probably think if you're holding those back, they must be really bad. But anyway, here goes. So number one, possibly the worst. I think 1 and 13 will probably be the worst, because I think of like getting the worst out of the way, and also 13 has been an unlucky number. I think it's like 12 witches, and the 13th one is the devil or something, so it's seen as an unlucky number by me and others. But like, I have an existential crisis, I think they call it, where I've got to admit, it's a lot. For a long time, I've worried whether existence is worth it, and I think, like, I have these negative thoughts, like thinking, obviously these are all about my negative thoughts, but thinking like non-existence is better than existence. And I suppose, as the Buddha said, existence is suffering, and he said the cause of that suffering is desire. But I think like non-existence would be so much easier. So yeah, I mean, it must be easier, but yeah, sorry for that one, but it is quite negative. But yeah, I think like non-existence would be better. So again, I hope with all these, I hope I'm proven wrong, but that's probably the worst one, or amongst the worst ones, worst or the second worst one or whatever. But 13 might be even worse, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, I wonder whether existence is worth it at all. So as I say, an existential crisis, and I think like non-existence is better than existence, and like, I fear that. And also, like, in the past I used to be afraid of death, but now I'm more afraid of life, to be honest. Number two, failure to learn things and change things. As I say, old habits die hard, but which I was going to come to a bit later, but I've gone ahead of myself there. But I thought I'd mention that anyway while I think about it. But failure to learn things, and also embarrassing moments, embarrassing myself and overthinking about what people think about me, and silly things I've said and done and whatnot, things I'm ashamed of. Again, one or two of them, at least, I think 2 or 3 of them I'm too ashamed to admit, and you probably think they must be really bad, given all the things I've given away in terms of my thoughts and that kind of thing. Number 3, I wish life was more freer. I wish there was less rules and less laws. If there were only 3 things I could get rid of, one would be hell. The second would be torture, torment, or anything where people or living things suffered more than they could bear. So I get rid of anything that made any living thing suffer more than they could bear. So basically, no living thing would suffer more than they could bear. I hope that makes sense. That's with all my points. And also, the third one would be things that take away people's freedom. Like, I'd get rid of the rule no fornication and things like that, which is another thing that depresses me. But yeah, I wish God made less rules and laws. Like, I often think of even though I'm not that religious, I think of like the biblical teachings, like about, they say, if the sun sets you free, you'll be free indeed. But I must admit, my definitions of freedom, which I've talked before about, but basically, I have 2 or 3 definitions of freedom. I'm going to go through them quickly. 1, doing whatever you want to do without the fear of reprisals and stroke or repercussions. 2, being not having to do what you don't want to do without fear of reprisals and stroke or repercussions in either order. And 3, being able to make choices, which I suppose you could say they're 2 things, because having choices is what 1 and 2 are about. But yeah, symbolically, I think it's pretty cool that I think of 3 things of what as to what freedom means to me. Again, I hope this all makes sense, because I'm going all over the place. But yeah, I wish God gave more freedoms, basically, and I wish there were more freedoms in life, less rules, less laws, and things like that. Anyway, moving on. Number 4, I wish my tea was cold enough for me to drink. Another bad habit I have is feeling it too high, so I spit it. But on a serious note, that was a little bit of a joke, sorry, about, well, it was a lame joke, but what am I talking about? I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, sorry. That wasn't really point 4, but yeah, point number 4, little things annoy me, and also like people distract, especially like when people distract me or move things. I put them in a certain place, or I like things to be in a certain way for some reason. I like things to be just so. So I like to be spontaneous or flexible, but a lot of times it sort of contradicts itself, because at the same time, if they're flexible or more spontaneous, I wish I could be more spontaneous and flexible a lot of times, but because I like things to be just so, it's difficult to get the balance right. But yeah, people calling me, distracting me, annoying me, and stuff like that. Like, well, I get annoyed by lots of things, like and people interrupting me and calling me and interrupting my plans and things like that. Those sorts of things annoy me. And again, some of my bad habits and stuff like that. Number 5, not getting to work on my 5 causes as well as I like going to Italy and sharing my ideas for a Town Football, and think of what I could do to benefit Town Football, sharing my ideas to benefit Town Football. Also, same for Celtic, libertarianism, support people from former colonies, and that kind of thing, and doing whatever it can to benefit those 5 causes, including tackling poverty, alleviating suffering, spreading joy, peace, love, hope, happiness, and all that. So, for instance, making these negative videos and thinking negatively, it sort of is a vicious circle, because I feel bad for covering negative stuff, but I like to be honest, so it's a difficult dilemma. Number 6, when Italian teams lose, that's a negative one for me. And all 3 Italian teams got to finals, European competitions. I think even at youth level, the Italian team got to a final, and they all lost them. And also Italy failing to get to the World Cup, and things like that. So Italian teams losing is another negative of mine. And also, as I say, not being able to get my plans done as well as I like. So as I say, not being able to write up ideas and fundraise and make YouTube videos as I like on those 5 causes, and basically do whatever I can to benefit those 5 causes. I feel I've not even got started on those as well as I'd like, although I have kind of, because I've discussed them, but I'm trying to think of ways to put them into practice and actually practically get things started practically, and that kind of thing. Number 7, also Celtic, when Celtic lose, and my fears about Celtic not winning this league title in Scotland, and also our arch rivals, the Rangers, or as I call them, the Rankers. Many people call them Sevco, stuff like that, because I think they got bought out by a company called Sevco or whatever when they were facing liquidation, something like that. But anyway, I fear them winning this league title and then getting lots of money and then being able to dominate, or Celtic not being able to win the league for a long time, or not being able to go ahead of them. I know it's kind of first world problems, but it's like the straw that breaks the camel's back, or as I take football a bit too serious, I might say. So those are my sort of fears. Obviously, as I said in the intro, and in a few of the points, I hope that I get proven wrong about these sorts of fears that I have, and one day I think the opposite sort of thing, or the opposite happens, or whatever. Like, I value life more by some miracle. If God could help me do that, then I suppose He really is a miracle worker. And I can show that prayer works and miracles do actually happen. And also, yeah, if I get proven wrong about a lot of these things, so in this case, Celtic winning so many trophies and getting so much investment and sponsorship money, and being able to dominate Scottish football and overtake the Rangers on record, rankers as I call them. Also, as they say, sixes and sevens, my mental health problems, I have paranoia, I think, possibly even schizophrenia sometimes, certainly anxiety, depression, and things with my hoarding and stuff like that, which drive me nuts. And I struggle to control those things. I suppose they are compulsions. I'm an obsessive compulsive order, so they are sort of compulsions, i.e., things that you can't control. So those are some of mine. Those are some of the things that make me feel negative as well. And I think that covers everything for point number 7. But yeah, those mental health problems that I want to talk about. But as I say, they say sixes and sevens. Sometimes I partly jokingly say, did I become an Italian football fan and a Celtic fan because I'm mad, or did being an Italian football fan and a Celtic fan make me mad? So anyway, I thought I'd include that as point number 7 because like sixes and sevens, as the saying goes, which means you're mad like me. Anyway, moving on, number 8. I fear whether people will like my videos and waffle too much as a side note, but also like just general negative thoughts, like whether I make a fool of myself. My punctuation is another thing I forgot to say in point number 7 actually. And my challenges in changing my punctuation. I have the world's worst punctuation as I see it, and I'm sure most people would agree, but I do struggle to make those changes. And also general negatives. And again, talking about confessions, again, as I mentioned before, like I think of like the biblical teachings, but even though I'm not that religious, but they say God is good and God is love, but I don't really see it that God is loving or good. I just see him as always angry and like hateful, and I fear that he hates me and doesn't want my love. Otherwise, like I think, why wouldn't he support my goals, like my writing and stuff like that, if he doesn't want my love? If he wanted my love, sorry. And also, I don't know if I should say this, but sometimes I even fear that God is evil or stuff like that, or I have this imagination. Like, again, I'm jumping ahead of myself because I was going to cover this in part 2, but I'll probably say it twice. But a terrible imagination, like once I was actually trying to read the Bible and I read a bit of it and I thought, what if God sent people to heaven for a certain amount of time and gave them the first false illusion of like happiness and stuff like that, and then afterwards sent them to hell and stuff like that. So again, some more negative thoughts. Again, sorry for sharing and being honest about my negative thoughts. Number 9, as I say, general pessimisms, and again, I hope I'm proven wrong about these. And like people going through my paperwork without my permission, being able to read my writing, which well, I don't know if anyone can read my writing anyway, my punctuation and my handwriting, but I only want people in organisations who I want to read those notes, to sort of be able to read them. They're kind of private notes, and my mum and her ex and other people sort of read them without my permission. So that's really frustrating me. And God not protecting my paperwork. But one of my prayers was, my main prayer probably, one of my main prayers was, and why I feel let down by God, is that I said anyone who tries to touch my paperwork without my permission, or anything of mine really, especially my paperwork, writings or whatever, would fall and injure themselves only just enough to put them off doing so again, or each time they tried to touch them they would fall and not be too badly injured, but just enough. After a while they probably, like 2 or 3 times, maybe 4 times, they'd give up. Let's say the 3rd time, as I say, 3 strikes and all that kind of thing. And when that didn't happen, obviously I became frustrated. But yeah, just general pessimisms and struggling to control those compulsions of hoarding and stuff like that, which I'm hoping to find solutions to. But at the moment, I've struggled up to this point. And things like that, again, God not blessing my paperwork and stuff like that, and my plans and whatnot. And also not being able to prioritise. And number 10, finally, people, especially children and animals, also suffering. And suffering that happens in the world, especially like poverty, suffering, wars. I don't blame God for wars, I blame people, because if God gives us free will, then I think it's our own fault if we go to war, or it's certain people's fault. Unfortunately, innocent people get caught up in it as well, especially, and also natural disasters and illnesses and diseases and stuff like that. But again, people suffering, I wish that people would have more peace, love, joy, hope, happiness, and all those good things. And that kind of thing. But anyway, sorry if this was a negative one, and even parts 2 and 3 and 4 will probably be negative. If you want to skip today and watch more positive ones, I'll understand, as I say. but I always welcome views and comments and whatever, and any support for my channel. So anyway, maybe you can even give me tips on how to think more positively. Anyway, I'm going to stop waffling and I'm out.